Let us begin by defining what is authenticity. Generally, how it's understood in the earth human field is just be yourself. This is a very common way which authenticity is spoken of, but it can be discussed in a much more scientific way than that. So the understanding is much less vague, because just be yourself, what does that mean? How does one just be themselves? The answer is okay, welcome to today's channel. If you haven't read this book yet, I recommend that you do. I'm getting some great feedback. Someone said to me recently, in a comment on YouTube, that this book is a seminal work for our times, which is, wow, that's just such a great thing for me to hear as the author or the co-author of this book. So if you haven't got a copy yet, I suggest that you do. It's available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and the links for that are underneath this video. If you'd like to have a private channel, that's something which is also possible. All you need to do is look for the link below this video. It takes you to an inquiry form, and that just starts a conversation, doesn't commit you to anything. Just a reminder that I'm working on a new course called How to Channel, and it's aimed at people who have an interest but really don't have that much experience yet. So perhaps if you've channeled less than like 20-25 times. Okay, and finally, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, share, comment. Today's topic is the age of authenticity. Greetings and thank you for the statement. The age of authenticity. Before we get into the content of this channel, we would like to suggest to you, as in Muzz, who is doing the channel, that when you bring the channel topic to us, that you bring it in the form of a question. So for example, with this topic, the age of authenticity, we would suggest bring it to us in the form of what is meant by the age of authenticity. Now we realize that you bring it in this form because then it makes it easier for you to use it in the branding of this video, because it's much shorter to say the age of authenticity than what is meant by the age of authenticity. And you can still continue to just use the shortened version of that brand. But what we mean is bring it to us in the form of a question, because by doing it this way, it creates a much more demarked, much more delineated gap in the wisdom field. So the way that the channeling works is that you bring to us a question, a pondering, and this question, when you maintain that in your beingness as something that which you have a striving to understand, it's something that you have an eagerness or an earnestness to comprehend, to gather the insight, the wisdom which is missing from your own personal understanding, then this creates what could be described as a wisdom gap or a negative pressure in the information field. And by maintaining this negative pressure in the information field, which is all around you, then it is a very natural tendency for the information field to want to balance itself. And so the wisdom which is relevant to the gap in the wisdom field which you are maintaining through your pondering will come to the gap and fill it so that a balance is reached, and we can operate as the conduit. So we will be the pipe, in a sense, which directs that flow of wisdom into the wisdom gap which is being held open as a type of negative pressure by your pondering. So let us take it upon ourselves to say, thank you for the question, what is meant by the age of authenticity? So, let us begin by defining what is authenticity. So, generally how it's understood in the earth human field is just be yourself. You don't need to pretend to be someone else. You don't need to have a facade pretending that you're something which you are actually not. So just be yourself. This is a very common way which authenticity is spoken of, but it can be discussed in a much more scientific way than that. So the understanding is much less vague, because just be yourself, what does that mean? How does one just be themselves? The answer is very simple, and once you hear it, it will make complete sense to you. So, if you are to be yourself, then one has to understand what is oneself. Who am I? What is this self that I am? What is the most clarified, pure version of this being that I am? And then once we know what the answer to that question is, then it becomes much simpler to then go from that to being that self. So, as we tend to repeat ad nauseum, you are not the avatar. You are the highest self, the infinite, immortal, invulnerable, energetic. And that energetic existed before the avatar that you are currently residing in came to be, and will continue to exist when this avatar has expired. That is the truest definition of who you are. The actual the designation of the individuation which is you. So the one, in its desire to know itself experientially, had to create the context of more than one, because when there is only one, differentiation, contrast, and therefore experience isn't possible. And the one knew itself to completion conceptually, but it did not know itself experientially because there was no matrix for that to be possible. So it created the illusion of more than one, meaning that it divided itself infinitum into an infinite number of individuations, and you are one of those individuations. And the true designation of the individuation which is you could be said to be your higher self. So, in the truest sense, within the paradigm, within the parameters of you having individual existence, then it is your higher self which is most truly defining this individuation. So it is most truly defining who you are. Therefore, that is the answer to who are you? You are the higher self. And of course, this can be incrementally expanded to say you are the humanity being, and you are the earth being, and you are the solar system being, and you are the galaxy being, and you are the one. But for the purpose of just being yourself, it is most pertinent within the earth human experience to speak exclusively from now about the higher self. So, what is the higher self's relationship to the avatar? As you are not the avatar, but instead the higher self, then to be authentically you, then it must be some type of combination of the higher self being projected from the avatar. The avatar being, in a sense, like a puppet, and the higher self being present energetically within the avatar in the most pure way possible. So, as the higher self is the true you and you are not the avatar, but yet the avatar is animating the higher self is animating the avatar, then clearly the higher self is in a way download real-time streaming into the avatar, because the higher self is not stored in the avatar; it's stored off-site in a sense. So for the avatar to be puppeteered by the higher self, which is what is occurring, the avatar is like the puppet, the higher self is the puppeteer, then clearly it is downloading into the avatar, real-time streaming into the avatar. So to be authentically you, to just be yourself, then some way you have to then exude this higher self download in a way which is as pure as possible, that isn't contaminated by anything else. Now, this sounds easier than it's done, because inherent to the avatar is the organic artificial intelligence, which is the mind. This is part of the avatar apparatus, so that to facilitate the incorporation of the higher self download stream into the avatar, such that the higher self can have a physical experience through the proxy of the avatar. But the mind also has the capacity to completely take control of the apparatus, to assume the highest place in the hierarchy of command. And when there is an unawareness of the higher self truism, meaning that you are the higher self, there is the tendency within the Earth human field to become very identified in the mind, to become very identified in the avatar, and the higher self doesn't get a look in a way. The higher self is relegated to ineffectual anonymity. And because the mind has assumed this place of total control, then it will not allow anything to be part of the presence of the avatar, of you the individual, unless it has first passed the scrutiny of the mind. Because the mind is in a continuous state of protection. It has concerns about everything. It is neurotic. And it also understands that it is finite, that it is mortal. And it does not wish to cease to be. So it is always on the lookout for some potential harm. And that harm includes embarrassment, humiliation, looking stupid, saying the wrong thing, and so on. So when the higher self is download real-time streaming into the avatar, this is a flow of inspiration. This is the most accurate way to describe the flow, because it is a flow of inspiration. And when you are living authentically, this inspiration is acted on, meaning that you are spontaneous. You say what it is that you instantly have the inspiration to say. You do what you instantly have the inspiration to do. You are a being which is entirely spontaneous, entirely instantaneous. This is true authenticity. However, this makes the mind very uncomfortable, because the mind hasn't had the opportunity to scrutinize what is broadcast when one is being spontaneous, when one is being completely a being of inspiration. So the mind would prefer that it has an opportunity to curate everything before it is said, before it is done. So what occurs, and this is the most common presentation of the earth human, the real-time download stream of the highest self comes into the avatar, and then the mind diverts the feed into a place where it is curated. And the mind says, don't say this, don't sit that way, change that facial expression, don't, change, scrub, forget saying that, and so on. And then later, a delayed signal is broadcast as the presence, but it is synthetic, and all or most authenticity has been lost. And so instead, you are an inauthentic being. And when you are an inauthentic being, you are very diminished in your effectiveness, very diminished in your impactfulness, very diminished in your energetic broadcast. You live as a dulled, stunted, dimmed, blunted being. So, to live authentically is to be spontaneous, to trust the download feed. And by trusting the download feed, then you can be brave enough to be spontaneous, to be instantaneous, to say exactly what it is you are inspired to say at the moment that you are inspired to say it. The higher self is a being which spans all of time, for lack of a better word. So it is much better equipped to be perfectly calibrated to the moment than the mind is. The mind is lacking the capacity to have extra dimensional awareness. It has been designed to be aware only of the sensory input. And anything beyond that is outside of its scope, and should be outside of its purview of authority. So the mind is just a computation tool that facilitates the implementation of the desires of the higher self. So, when the mind is relegated to its rightful place, it remains in a state of silence until it is called upon to do some type of computation. And then when that service of computation has concluded, it returns to silence. And it isn't required to be continuously offering its input, because the inspirational flow of the higher self is adequate, is satisfactory, and nothing else is required for most of the time. But of course, this requires trust, and also it will require practice, because the mind can be confused, as in your impressions, you can confuse the mind as inspiration of the higher self. So it does take practice, it does take trust that the inspiration is coming from the higher self. Okay. So, this idea, or this question, what is meant by the age of authenticity? As humanity polarizes further towards the light, then the qualities of the darkness are becoming less effective and also becoming less admired and becoming more visible as to what they actually are. So in the past, within the human field, it could be said that it has been the age of power, meaning that the central focus for those that were in positions of greatest authority was the accumulation of power, to be the most powerful, and to then to have all of the rewards that come from that. And when power is the focus, then the means by which the power is attained is in a way an irrelevancy. And it just so happens that when power is the focus, then there is a greater polarization to the darkness, because the accumulation of power, for the most part, necessitates a indifference to those that are subject to your actions, which you feel necessary to acquire greater and greater and greater power. And for one who is focused on the accumulation of power through the vehicle of darkness, then this exploitation, this parasitic relationship where that power is collected by stripping it from others. There is a requirement for inauthenticity, because if one was authentic about what their intentions are, about what they're really doing, about what the consequences to the victims or those that are the host from which the dark-oriented beings are parasitically harvesting, or they require to increase this incremental increase of their power, then those who are the victims, who are acting as the host, would obviously have an objection to that. Why are you doing this to us? I refuse to allow you to continue to harvest from me and those that are important to me all the things that you are saying are necessary for your accumulation of power, because it is a great detriment to oneself, it is a great detriment to those that I consider to be important. Therefore, I will not be a part of this. I resist. So, out of necessity, those beings that are focused on power must be inauthentic. They must, as much as possible, tell a narrative which deceives those that are being victimized, that creates a sense of everything that is being done for me. They are taking the weapons away because that is the best thing for me. They are forcing me to put this substance in my body through an injection because that's the best thing for me, and so on. And it is through this continuous deception that they incrementally increase their power and increasingly diminish the power of those that they are harvesting their resources from. But humanity is moving deeper and deeper and deeper into the light as a whole. There is a bifurcation occurring. So there is a portion of humanity that are moving deeper into the darkness, but the greater bulk of humanity is moving deeper into the light, polarizing to the light. And one of the artifacts of this polarization to the light is an increasing capacity to perceive that which is inauthentic. An inauthenticity detecting radar, in a sense. And you would have noticed that the politicians, which you can recognize as being part of this greater cabal of darkness, of unified malevolence, the politicians, which are representative of that energy, are appearing more and more to be incredibly fake, like very inauthentic in their presentation. And it could be said that it makes your skin crawl at how false they are, at how blatantly they lie, at how insincere they are about their concerns for the community, or concerns for your country, or concerns for a particular ethnic group. And you realize that they will say anything to maintain their grip on power. They will tell any lie to increase their authority over you. So this is indicative of the end of the era of power. And this is the same as to say it is the end of the era of inauthenticity. Inauthenticity just doesn't get the job done anymore. And now there is a rise of leaders who speak the absolute truth. And they don't need to do anything special other than speak the truth. And that is enough of a demarcation from the rest of global leadership that they are gathering citizens who are very willing to follow them and give them their vote simply because they are telling the truth. They are saying it like it is. The new currency of value in an energetic sense is authenticity. So, this is playing out on a global scale and nationally and in communities. You can see more and more those that are truthful. And it is such a simple concept to just be completely honest. And by being completely honest, you are being more authentically who you are. Because the higher self is a being of the light, of total clarity about what it is. And characteristic, an element of the light is truth. So, as this is the phenomenon which is occurring on a global scale, and also authenticity is the new currency, then if you wish to be more successful in your business endeavors, more successful in your relationships, more successful in new opportunities, then start dealing with this currency which is gaining value to your fellow humans. You will be appreciated more and more and more for your authenticity. And this includes speaking the truth even when the truth will disadvantage you in some way, in the way that you could perceive it. In the sort of immediate surface level understanding of a situation, you may feel if you speak the truth, that this is going to be disadvantageous to you. However, the truth will always be the most powerful action, because you are a being of the light and you are dealing with other beings who are also of the light. And as you become more and more polarized to the light, then you are going to find yourself naturally in an environment where those who share the environment with you are also more polarized to the light. And they will have a growing appreciation for the currency of authenticity. And when they see you behave in a way which is authentic, as in completely honest, even to your own detriment, then this is going to have a lasting impression on them. And you will find that if you make this your way and you develop the reputation of being someone who is entirely authentic, then your life, the way that you are received, and the opportunities that you are given, and the trust that is placed in you, will increase, will become more in line with the life situation that you wish to be experiencing. So, let us finish in this way. The age of power is coming to an end, and you are going to witness the crumbling of the old paradigms, and those that have maintained their power, wealth and authority through inauthenticity are going to get their comeuppance, and there will be a dissolution of all that they have built and maintained using this parasitic relationship which had inauthenticity and secrecy at its very foundation. Because authenticity is the new currency, and inauthenticity is a deficit. It is a energetic minus. As the age of authenticity becomes more and more prominent, then any inauthenticity in yourself is also going to be a net negative. It is going to drag you down and diminish your access to the life that you would prefer to have more and more and more and more. So it is time to start living in a way which is more authentic, meaning that you are being honest. And the easiest way to start living in this way is to be a being of spontaneity. When you are in a situation and you are called upon to offer an input which can be honest, then don't hesitate to be honest. Any hesitation is this action of the mind wishing to protect you from the consequences of honesty. And so it will, from the consequences of authenticity, and so it will divert your inspiration into a curation area to change what it is that you're going to say, so that you instead say something which is delayed and synthetic and inauthentic. Stop living that way. Start being a being of spontaneity, and manifest from that. An artifact of being spontaneous is you will be honest. And this march deeper and deeper and deeper into the light, polarizing to the light, moving towards the ultimate destination, which is the unity of the humanity being, having transcended from the third into the fourth density and emerging from the birth canal of ascension as a unified being of unity, meaning that there is no spiritual dichotomy. There is just a understanding of self through experiential realization that you are the light and nothing but the light. And consequences to that is you will be a being of total and utter virtue. So, start living more and more as a being of virtue now. Because the true you is completely virtuous. The true you is completely honest, loving, caring, sympathetic, and so on. These are the qualities of the light, and this is what you are. So, to be authentically you, start being of the light. Thank you, and we love you.